Through a snowy field in the Wild West, cutthroat Bill rides her bike and notices Lula standing nearby. Eventually Bill reaches a church where they're holding a funeral. Everyone steps back because they're aware of how dangerous Bill is and let her take a jacket from the coffin. Meanwhile Lula goes home and her brother Jack informs her that both their parents have died of smallpox. She can't help but look at the bodies while she grieves. Soon their grandfather Caleb arrives and together they say a prayer as a final goodbye. They leave for their aunt's house in Texas after setting the house on fire to stop the disease from spreading. In an abandoned town, Bill reunites with her gang. They ride to the river crossing and discover that Caleb's family has paid for the ferry first. Bill tries to ask Caleb to pay for her too and makes a pass at Lula. Caleb defends her granddaughter and takes out his gun, causing the whole gang to do the same. Suddenly the ferry rope snaps and the noise startles Caleb, who opens fire. The bullet brushes Bill's head and she responds by shooting Caleb twice to kill him. Then the gang knocks Jack out and kidnaps Lula. Sometime later in Sylvester Town, the gang enters a store to steal supplies. The owner has a gun but he's too scared and does what they say. Bill shames him by making him suck on candy from her hand. Outside, Lula wakes up on the horse and finds the owner's son, so she tells him to run. The gang hears her and turns around, so the store owner takes out his weapon and opens fire. His shot hurts a gangster's hand and Bill quickly kills him with a shot to the head. Lula is trying to run but she slips on the mud and falls. When the owner's son tries to help her, he gets shot down too. Bill comes out and captures Lula again. By the river, Jack wakes up to find Lula and his cart gone. He tries to pray for his grandfather as a final goodbye but he can't finish because he has a breakdown. Desperate to find his sister, he arrives in Sylvester and notices that the locals are gathering on the streets. They captured a random man whom they think is Bill and want to hang him for killing the store owner. Thinking the man may be a gang member, Jack tries to ask him about Lula but he can't push through the furious crowd and ends up falling. When he looks up, he notices Jimmy Sue being kidnapped and pushed into a carriage by Hector. Because of the chaos, nobody hears her cries for help. On the town square, the captured man is hanged. Once again Jack runs to try to talk to him before he dies, but one of the angry locals knocks Jack out to stop him from interfering. In the woods, the gang stops for the horses to rest. Lula says her brother will save her and Bill tells her that Jack is dead. While Bill takes care of her man's hand injury, Lula steals a gun from a horse. However, she's too scared to shoot and Bill takes the gun back. Then she fires a couple of times near Lula's head to punish her. In the morning, Jack wakes up next to the hanged man's body. Gravedigger Eustace was going to bury Jack too if he didn't wake up. Eustace explains that the gang was seen riding north and Jack tries to rent his car, but it belongs to Eustace's associate Jones. At the tavern, Jones is trying to get paid for the grave job, but the alderman wants to pay half of what they agreed on and keeps mocking Jones for his height. When the alderman threatens violence, Jones doesn't hesitate to fight him and reveals his amazing skills. In just a few seconds, he brings down the guy regardless of the size difference, cutting his arm in the process. Then he points his gun at the alderman's head so he can take his money and leave. The alderman tells his friends to go after Jones, who frees the men's horses to slow them down. As the group opens fire, Jones is picked up by Eustace, who has hidden Jack on the back of his car. Once they're outside town, Jack tells Jones about his sister and that Bill has a juicy bounty on her head. Jones pulls out a gun with a telescope and he sees the alderman's friends still coming after him. The telescope allows him to shoot one from afar and the group gets scared, so they go home. Jones refuses to help Jack so he and Eustace live in their car. Jack decides to follow them by stealing the horse from the dead man. In the meantime, Bill forces Lula to take off her nice clothes to burn them so she won't stand out, then she makes her wear one of her men's shirts. That night Jones tries to rob a sleeping Jack. Eustace stops him and points out that the bounty may make the job worth it. As Jack wakes up, Jones tells him he'll help him, but Jack works for him now. In the morning, the alderman hires Simon and Malachi, known as the DC Brothers, to kill Jones. After a long day of riding, Jones's group stops to rest. Jack shares some of the good Christian quotes Caleb always told his family but Jones corrects him, explaining they're quotes from Hamlet and not the Bible. The next day, Lula asks the gang to stop so she can pee in the woods. She grabs some branches for balance and accidentally hurts her hand, leaving some blood behind. That night while Lula is trying to sleep, a man tries to take advantage of her while the others hold her down. Lula reaches for a bottle and breaks it on a guy's head, then she yells for help. Bill wakes up and the attacker pretends Lula had been trying to run away, but Bill doesn't believe him and grabs him by the groin to greatly hurt his rocks. Afterward Bill lies down next to Lula and hugs her while they sleep to protect her. The next morning, the DC brothers find Lula's blood in the forest. Meanwhile Jack's group stops at a town to change the car for horses and gather information. Jack enters a tavern and discovers that Jimmy Sue has been forced to become a naughty worker. He's already developing a crush on her and tries to hire her, but Hector says she's not ready for men yet. Jack insists until Hector takes his money. In the bedroom, Jack reveals he wants to rescue her, not do the naughty with her. Jimmy Sue is skeptical at first but agrees to leave with him. On their way out, Hector immediately stops them, knocking Jack down before slapping Jimmy. Jack tries to fight him and manages to land a few hits, but Hector keeps overpowering him and even slams his head on the counter. Jimmy tries to help only to get beaten up as well. Then Hector starts choking Jack, blaming Jimmy before sending her back to the room. Jack uses the chance to grab a fire poker and hits Hector with it, finally knocking him out. Jimmy spits on him before running away with Jack. When they reunite with Jones and Eustace, Jimmy tells them where the gang was last seen. In the woods, Lula asks a gang member where they're taking her. The guy explains they're going to the Thicket, an unreachable outpost where they have a hideout. He also reveals that Bill has kidnapped many girls before and the one who tried to escape was cut up. In the evening, Jones's group finds one of Bill's associates and ties him up to interrogate him. They start beating him but he won't talk, so they hurt him with nails to no avail. Jones looks at the papers on the table and discovers that Bill's bounty is actually very small. He refuses to do the job for so little, so after an argument, Jones and Eustace leave. Jimmy and Jack promise to help the wounded guy if he cooperates, so he tells them about the Thicket. Before Jack can ask for more details, the man dies. Back to Lula, she's managed to escape from her captors while they sleep, and as she runs through the forest, she bumps into the DC brothers. They promise to protect her and bring her to their camp, where they tell her about their goal to hunt down a dwarf. Suddenly they hear horses approaching the camp and Lula runs to hide. Bill rides in and pushes Simon down on the fire while Malachi runs away. After rushing to recapture Lula, Bill comes back and shoots Simon in the chest right through his badge. Once Bill and Lula are gone, Malachi runs to be with his brother while he dies. The following morning Jack and Jimmy find Jones and Eustace to offer a new deal. If they take the job, Jack will pay them with Caleb's land, which belongs to him now. Jones accepts and even gives Jack a gun. After riding for a while, they discover that the gang is stopped in a town. Jones enters an inn to buy some whiskey while trying to get information only to find Bill there. She insults his height and he insults his scarred face in return. Surprisingly, Bill respects him for this, since people usually are too scared to say anything or have too many awkward questions. Jones usually encounters the same problem and shows understanding, so Bill shares candy with him before leaving. Outside, Lula overhears the gang members mentioning that Bill is chatting with a dwarf. Jones sees her through a hole in the wall and mentions Jack's name rather loudly while chatting with the innkeeper, so Lula hears him and knows her brother is looking for her. Eustace and the teens hide behind the trees with their weapons ready, but Jones never gives a signal because Lula is in the way of a potential shootout. Suddenly Malachi surprises Jimmy from behind and takes her hostage. Jones uses smart words to get him to talk and Malachi shares what happened to his brother. The group explains they're going after Bill and Malachi agrees to join them for revenge. Meanwhile, Bill finds a church and furiously bursts in to attack the priest. In the evening, Jones's group rests at the nearest town. Jack and Jimmy bond some more and end up kissing. The next day, the team discovers that Bill burned down the church. The priest has terrible burn scars but he's still alive. He tells them how to reach the Thicket and that Lula won't survive spring. Then he tells them that Bill's scars were caused by her abusive mother, who saw her daughter as a punishment for having so many men in her life. While she was still a child, Bill locked her mother inside the house and burned it down. The priest still remembers the screaming. Jack urges the group to get going and Jones reminds him that he's the one in charge. Tired of being treated as a kid, Jack insults him without showing fear of his skills, so instead Jones starts offering Jimmy money for some naughty time. An angry Jack falls for the bait and tries to attack him, but Jones easily brings him down and threatens to shoot him. Jimmy points out that all of them are acting out because they're scared and don't know how to deal with it. She explains she knows how Lula must feel and can tell Jones is helping not because of the money, but because he feels bad for the girl. They should work as a team and stop having dumb arguments over being the boss. Eustace backs her up and Jones finally puts his gun away before apologizing to Jimmy. In the woods, Lula asks Bill if she's going to kill her. Bill says she doesn't know and gets weirdly affectionate with Lula, even resting her head on her lap. After riding for a while, Jones's team is starting to lose track of the gang because the snow is covering any marks on the ground. However, they don't give up and enter the thicket. When night falls, they stop to camp and Jones and Jack get to reconcile. Jones shares that his mother self-deleted when he was a kid and his father sold him to the circus. He still remembers his family to this day, so he assures Jack that his sister will remember him too. The following day, the group finds the gang in a shack in the woods. They want to wait for the right moment to strike, but Malachi is desperate for revenge and sneaks around to hide behind the privy. When a man comes out, Malachi tries to attack him, only to get knocked down quickly. The gangster takes out a knife and furiously stabs Malachi multiple times. Jack wants to help him but Jones stops him because it would give away their position. Unfortunately, Jimmy ignores him and opens fire, bringing the gangster down. Eustace says they should attack first, so the men move ahead after telling Jimmy to stay back for safety. The man who killed Malachi manages to crawl back to the shack before the trio opens fire. The gangsters shoot back through the windows while Lula hides and Bill ignores the whole deal. As the shootout continues, the team keeps on moving forward and Jones sneaks behind the house. Lula sees him and comes out through the back door, which finally makes Bill react. She comes out with open fire and drives Lula to the foggy woods. Eustace and Jack scare off the gang and Jack runs to the forest to find his sister, ignoring Jones's warnings. At that moment a gang member finds Jimmy, who manages to land a shot before he jumps on her. They struggle and roll on the snow until she gets on top of him, only for the man to stab her. He says a few words in his native language before they die together. At the same time Jones discovers that Eustace was wounded during the shootout and says he has an idea, so he sets up his gun with a telescope. Suddenly they hear a gangster approaching, so Eustace goes out to distract them while Jones looks for his target. The enemy surprises him with a tackle and a fight ensues as both men violently roll in the snow. Jack is wandering through the woods while following Bill's laughter. When he hears a shot, he hides behind a tree just in time. Bill keeps taunting him from the shadows and distracts him until she manages to shoot him in the shoulder. When he tries to stand up, Bill shoots his other shoulder too. While Lula runs to her brother's side, Bill tries to end him, only to discover she's out of bullets. Lula uses the chance to tackle Bill and starts punching her in the face. A laughing Bill knocks her down and gets her knife out, ready to slash her neck. The punches have made her dizzy and she hesitates, giving Jones enough time to shoot her in the head. Bill says "Mama" before falling dead. The siblings reunite with a hug, but Jack can't move. He ends up dying in his sister's arms, causing her to have a breakdown. Jones goes looking for Eustace and finds him mortally wounded. Eustace is glad to hear Bill is dead and doesn't regret coming. The old friends share a few words and watch the beautiful sunlight before Eustace dies with tears in his eyes. Afterward, Lula cuts Bill's head off and Jones helps her take it to the nearest sheriff. He wants to make Jones famous for this achievement, but Jones asks him to keep the killer anonymous. To the duo's surprise, the big bounty was real after all. After getting new clothes and a ride, Lula tells Jones that she's alone in the world and asks him to come with her. Later in Caleb's land, the duo is living together and has dug a grave for Jack in their backyard. Lula probably carries a scar on her neck from Bill's knife. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.